Welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. I'm not drinking anything because it is late at night and I suddenly realised I forgot to film a video today. So I'm doing it now. I already had my drink for the night and none of you are going to complain about it. So it's Vlogmas. Vlogmas is still going on, just about. I'm now at the stage where all of my pre-filmed videos are done. So I'm like taking every day as we get them. Who knows if we'll make it to Christmas Eve. Fingers crossed. So for today's video, I actually am asking you guys for your help and advice. So there have been a few books in recent years that I have read and loved and then looked on my Goodreads, or before I had Goodreads, like found my reading diary that I used to keep from when I was younger, where I wrote down books I read and what I thought of them, and discovered that I had already read them before and hated them. So not only had I then forgot that I read them, I also forgot that I hated them the first time and actively felt really different about them. So examples of that are Death of a Salesman. I didn't forget that I read that one actually. We read that one at school and I just remembered that I hated it. And then a few years later my cousin was like, no, it's actually really good. And I read it and was like, whoa, you're right, it's really good. And then there's a book called The Dead Heart, I think it's called, by Douglas Kennedy. And that one I read and was like, this is so weird, such a weird book but so much fun. And then I found it in my reading journal. It wasn't even from that long ago. It was like I'd read it the year before and hated it and gave it like a 1 star. And then I read it a year later, didn't recognize it and was like, cool, 4 stars. So that was pretty wild and pretty cool, and shows that books like come into your life at the right times, but also made me feel stressed and scared because it was like, which other books have I written off as 1-star reads that actually I might love, and I just need to give them a second chance. So that's where you guys come in. I'm going to tell you some of the books that I have given 1-star reads. Not all of them because there are a fair few, but I've chosen a few that I like vaguely recognize the titles for that I read and gave 1 stars to, and I want you to tell me if those books are worth a second chance. Thank you so much for your help. Let's do this. DC Trip by Sarah Benincasa. I remember just thinking this book was trying very hard to be funny and not actually managing to be funny. But maybe I was just in a bad mood. You know, sometimes you're feeling grumpy and you just don't like a book. Maybe it actually was quite funny. Pretty Is by Maggie Mitchell. Now this one sounds like a book I should like. So it's about these 2 teenagers who were abducted when they were younger. And they were kept together by this kidnapper. I'm describing this so badly. They were both abducted together. They were kept prisoner together. They obviously had that like incredibly traumatic bonding experience. They eventually are rescued or escape, I can't remember. And then it sort of takes place years later, these 2 girls who no longer talk to each other, and there's like all this tension, and it's like, what happened? That sounds so good, but I gave it a 1 star, and I can't remember why I gave it a 1 star. So has anyone else read it? Is it a 1-star book? I'm so croaky right now. I better not get ill for Christmas. I will kill a bitch. Watching Edie by Camilla Way. To be honest, I don't want to give this one a second chance because I remember why I hated this one. I hated it a lot. It was just gratuitous. It had a very horrible rape scene that I didn't enjoy reading. I mean, when do you ever enjoy it? But it didn't feel like it was serving a purpose other than like drama and a twist. And I just did not like any of that. So I don't think I do want to give it a second chance unless someone has a really strong opinion on why I misread it and it was actually very powerful and important. I don't know. Oh, Twilight, Life and Death. That was the gender-swapped, reimagined Twilight. Now, Twilight already, not a great book, but when I read them when I was younger, I loved them. So those weren't 1-star reads for me. But a few years ago, what's her name? Stephenie Meyer rewrote it to prove that it wasn't sexist. She was like, look, I can swap the genders and it doesn't change anything. That'll prove that I'm not sexist. My hands feel really dry. I'm honestly so distracted by how dry my hands are. It's because I removed my nail varnish earlier with the acetone stuff and it's really dried my hands out. I can't even focus on you until I've got some hand cream. Okay, where was I? Twilight. Talking about Twilight. Yeah, so she was trying to prove that it wasn't sexist by gender swapping the characters and showing that it's the exact same story. But she kind of completely undermined herself by like changing it quite a lot when the genders were swapped. So suddenly loads of the things that was kind of seen as acceptable for Edward to do was not acceptable for, what was her fucking name? Ethel or something. It was some really strange name. Ermintrude. Edith. I think it was Edith. Suddenly those things weren't acceptable for Edith to do. So she proved that she was sexist anyway because she did have to totally rewrite the characters. So it was just really stupid. I did not read the whole thing. I skim read it and I thought it was awful and I gave it a 1 star. But let me know if for whatever reason I was wrong and actually it solved sexism, because I would love to know. Now I need some cuticle oil. I'm just having a real trouble with my hands today. Okay, the next book on my list is called The Last Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine. I think Liv Constantine is actually two people. I feel like that's their pen name for when they write together. And this one I hated. But it was such a shame because I loved the concept. Like, I'm not going to tell you the full twist because obviously that's a spoiler, but it's really, really dark and I'm so close to loving it because I love things that get really dark. But the way it was handled was actually just so wrong. Like, first it was just bad. I didn't think it was a well-written book. So even before then I was like, meh. But I was sort of guessing where it might go, where I kind of wanted it to go. And it did go that way, but in such a disturbing way. I know I was just saying I wanted it to be dark. I wanted it to be dark and disturbing, but how can I explain this without spoilers? A character who has a kind of dark fate ahead of her, it's sort of suggested by the authors that she deserves this dark fate because she's not a nice person. Whereas it was like, no, gross. Like, no one ever deserves that dark fate. I wanted it to just be like, it's a super dark, disturbing book and this scary thing has a possibility of happening, but not because anyone deserved it. That was so vague. But if you happen to have read that book, let me know. Oh, one that I read years and years ago. It's called Girlfriend in a Coma by Douglas Copeland. I don't remember why I didn't like it now. So again, this is one of those where the premise sounds like I should love it. It's about a guy whose girlfriend goes into a coma, and then we fast forward 17 years or something, and then she wakes up, and it's like, what world has she woken up into? And how does he react to her waking up in that world? And I remember thinking that sounded really fun. I was probably like 14 or something when I read it, and I remember thinking that sounded really fun. And then I gave it, in my little reading journal, a 1 star and said this book was terrible, and I can't remember why, but now that I'm saying it, I suddenly feel like I do remember. I feel like it maybe turned into a zombie book. Am I thinking of the right book? I literally forgot that until I just said it, which now kind of sounds hilarious and like I maybe do want to give it a second chance. I don't like zombie books. I'm not interested in that, but that's just like such a funny idea. Okay, let's see what other people say about it. Whoa, what? Okay, this book sounds bizarre. Yeah, that sounds so strange. But like, books that are that strange can go two ways. Either they're amazing or they're terrible. So let me know if you've read it and you loved it, because maybe 14-year-old Emma just wasn't ready for that shit. I don't know. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about is Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. So this one, everyone else I know who's read it has loved it. Everyone I know who saw the film loved it. I hated the film and I hated the book. I thought they were shit. But why? Why am I alone in this? Why can't I join in with everyone else having a fun time liking it? And I love things about memory loss. But I think I feel like this one's so unrealistic and stupid. It's basically about a woman who has short-term memory loss, so she can only remember one day at a time, but she writes down every day what's happening, so in the mornings she can wake up and read the book and kind of be reminded. Which, like, okay, I don't really know how it works having short-term memory loss, but I feel like just because you read this writing on a page, if you literally genuinely do not remember writing it, just the fact of reading it isn't going to restore you to, like, just be able to continue the mission of finding out the mystery then. Like, you'd read it and be like, what? I didn't write this. And you would waste your whole day with being scared about the fact that someone wrote this in your handwriting. I don't know. That's a pretty early point to get stuck on in the book. So from there I was already like, but why is reading this helping her? And then I just felt like it was stupid and I was bored. But that was a few years ago. So maybe if I'm feeling less grumpy and cynical, I might enjoy it. So my camera battery is flashing, so I'm going to go real fast, but give this video a thumbs up if you like Vlogmas, and leave a comment letting me know which of those books I should give a second chance to, because I'm all about the second chances, but only if they're going to make me happy, so don't make me read anything shit. And subscribe to this channel, because who knows, I might actually post videos for the rest of Vlogmas, but I might not. We'll see how this week goes. See you next time!